welcome everyone to Macroeconomics Mingle number 4. It's just going to be me and Michael talking because my brain had a bit of a went through a bit of a fart zone. Um, so yeah, I totally forgot to post up the link, but Michael knows that there's something going on, so it's just going to be the both of us, and it might just be either me or the both of us moving forwards because I think we will have more like a private session for camera shy people. Basically on Wednesdays or Wednesdays or Thursdays lah, moving forward. So yeah, so if anybody wants to join me and Michael, have your face on video, feel free to email us at admin@wealthwisSG.com, and yeah, we should be able to put you in on the spot. So great. Tariff Showdown is still going on. What's your let's hear from you first, Michael. What are your thoughts?
I don't think this is over as yet. I think we're still expecting Trump to announce the tariff for the electronic sites. So let's see how it actually goes.
Yeah. What's the latest on the electronic side? Do you recall? Like, I think he said 10% on all electronics, right? Including China? Or am I mistaken?
If I recall, it's 10% for the rest of the world, while China will still remain at 20%. 20% was the original tariff before all these things started.
Okay. What about the other things? I mean, China is going to impose, like, was it 125%? Or is it up to 145%? No, 125%, right?
Yep.
And US is 145%.
Yep, China is 125.
Doesn't look like China's going to back down, yeah.
Yeah. And overall, I see on the internet, it seems like there's a overall those people, most of the people outside of China or outside of US is rooting for China.
Okay.
So it'll be quite interesting to see this fight out. I did watch a bit of Fox News and I saw the comments. Wow, very interesting.
Well, what did you read?
So I think overall, at least for the Trump supporters, they are quite supportive of Trump overall handling of the tariff. However, on a personal point of view, I do think that Trump is implementing this tariff not for tariff purposes after all.
What do you think it's for then?
You remember Trump wanted to reduce interest rate before elections?
Well, even after now,
That's one of his things that's running on.
yeah, even now he still wants to reduce interest rates. Yes.
And also bring down inflation.
Of course, yes.
So in general, inflation can be reduced by two things. One is to restrict money supply, and the other is to use a recession to cause the drop in prices. After for inflation, it's always a demand more than supply.
Well, I mean, if tariffs are taken into effect, there will not be a decrease in inflation. In fact, there will be an increase in inflation. So how do you fence off the logic here?
So at the start, yes, there will be inflation. Do you remember what Paul Volcker did in 1980? What was the situation? Yep, he checked out interest rate.
19%, right?
And then it caused like a short kind of market drop, kind of recession kind of thing. So that the whole market went crashing down before it, and then pretty much the prices were stabilized for quite a bit. And even though normally without the market coming down, the interest rate alone would not have brought down prices that quickly. So I'm suspecting something along those lines as well, except that this time around, there will be no more rate increase, or rather it is a rate decrease. And in general, I do think that US actually needs this rate cut.
Yes.
Very important.
Yes. I think it sounds like Jerome Powell is being pretty stubborn. on keeping the rates up. Some say that Trump should have treated him a bit nicer because apparently now he is he's trying to not go along with the Trump agenda too like what do you call it? He doesn't want to be too in line with the Trump agenda of, I guess he wants to have his own, reasons or whatever. But
He's getting backed off in the corner. He can't keep the interest rate like that.
he can't, yeah. I mean, I like interest rates to be high only because I like to keep more cash. But I also understand that the US is in a lot of debt. I mean, keep more cash so that you have more interest and all that. Uh, but also like the US is also in a lot of debt, and they also need to reduce the interest payments so that they can continue to service their debt payment.
I think they
Speaking of,
had like 9 trillion in due this year or something.
goodness gracious. I went through quite a few podcasts, and some of them were very, very interesting. I don't think I'll be able to get all of it, out tonight, but we can kind of continue it in the private Zoom session. Yeah. But speaking of Jerome Powell, right? Did you see that Trump once is seeking the Supreme Court's permission to see if he can fire Jerome Powell?
I think I saw that, but I think in general, Jerome Powell needs to be confirmed by the president in any case.
Yes. The thing is he can't fire Jerome Powell
Yeah,
lah.
yeah.
So I don't know how he's gonna go about doing it, but I think if Jerome Powell is facing too much pressure, he may just back down and decrease interest rates.
I actually don't think he will.
You don't think he will?
Yeah. He can't. He can't. He can't
Really?
back down. If it is actually simply to show that Fed is running its own thing rather than
Right. I see. Yeah. Um, in some sense, I agree with that lah. Like in some sense, I am for it. Um, but on the other hand, if let's say if let's say on the other hand, it's the right thing to lower interest rates, then he should, but at least give a reasoning as to why, so that it will still look like they're independent of Trump, but they just seem to be agree, as opposed to if he just has his own, I don't know, like agenda and stuff, then that would not bode well lah, in that regard, and that might just put the country in a little bit of hotter soup. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, on other news, did you see that this clip where Kevin O'Leary challenge, not say challenge, but suggested that Trump just raise tariffs to 400%?
yeah, I saw that.
What do you
So
think?
I mean, it doesn't make a difference at all. Yeah, I think China did mention this. Once it goes past 100%, doesn't make any difference whether you raise it at 100% or 1,000%.
Really? Why is that?
It's only so much that okay. First, the reason why US is able to import so much stuff from China, sorry, why China is able to export so much stuff to US is because of their cost. The cost is lower than the rest of the world, but overall, it's not. After a certain amount, the other countries' exports will be competitive with China. I believe the rate is around 50% ish. Yeah, around 50 before other countries start to be of a better pricing than in China. But also depends on the location, how much it takes to ship over to China, ship over to US.
Okay, let's see if we can break this down for a sec. So, right now, okay, let's say before this tariff showdown, China was actively suppressing their currency.
Mm.
According to Kevin O'Leary and some other, and also Trump and the Trump administration, they were stealing IP. And according to there was a CNA segment where it showed different factories in Malaysia, in Indonesia, were being shut down or drastically reduced due to China's aggressive manufacturing practices. Now, in which case, if let's say Trump increases the tariffs to 100 and now it's for 145%, right? You think that most companies will just automatically, doesn't matter if it's 145%, doesn't matter if it's 400% or 600% or 800 or 1000%, they will just, most factories will just move their the businesses to like Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, all this lah. So it wouldn't matter how many percent tariffs would be on.
It will take a while to move over, but yes, in general, yeah. If this doesn't get resolved soon, then yes, there's high possibility that it will just move out. And in any case, China is also not really stopping them from moving out at this point of time, as China is trying to reconfigure itself.
Okay. But if let's say they do move the tariffs up to 400%, that would give businesses way more urgency to move, right? Do you think?
So in my opinion, whether is it they have more urgency to move, but there are things that can't be moved that quickly. It is not just a factory, but the whole supply chain.
Okay. Because let me think, 400, say, so let's say 400%. Okay, let's say it goes up by, I believe it could make a difference, because if let's say the tariffs are 100, let's say they are 100 and say 45%, that's only double of what you would normally pay lah. But if it moves up to 400%, that's 4 times what you would normally pay. So let's say if it's okay, so cars are not allowed. Thanks for the link to that YouTube channel. With Chinese cars being banned and all that stuff. So now I know
Oh,
that.
you actually watched that, okay.
Yeah. I actually commented on this on that, but I'm surprised you didn't get a notification that I commented on your video. But what other things let's say, I don't know, like clothes are, for example. So let's say one t-shirt costs $20 right now. If it's 150%, say, that will cost the American consumer $50 as opposed to $80. So the difference is going to be about $30. So, and that's a huge, very, very huge jump, which I think it will definitely reduce the purchases by quite a bit lah. But if you really jack up to 4 times, right, then who's going to pay $80 for a shirt that would have just cost $20 naturally?
So if I recall, the pricing isn't the pricing in different between where it's being made is not that drastic a difference. So currently, maybe China is making a shirt for what, $20? So for Vietnam, their cost will probably be about 25. Not that drastically different. 25, maybe 30. I'll give them 30. But it's probably a lower amount than that. So if China is actually really being slapped with say a 150%, the price would be what, 150, $50? While Vietnam with a 10% tariff right now would be about $33 if it's a 10% tariff. So even by then, so originally when China had a 20% tariff at $20, their cost would be the price would be they'll be selling at 24. So it'll be cheaper than Vietnam. However, at over 100%, that will be $40, which is already more expensive than in Vietnam.
Okay.
So you don't actually need that much of a difference to see that companies are trying to move.
Unless if let's say between 145% and 400%, let's say there is that jump, right? I think factories will definitely be more kanchong to quickly start up factories elsewhere, like ASAP. Factories I think will start really closing down in China, really, really bad. I think once factory closes, it's not going to be good for the CCP.
Some of the retailers in US are already being shut down. They can't take in the goods from China, even though they ordered, because they can't sell. If they sell, there will be major loss. So they have turned away the shipment.
Sorry, can you repeat that? So that means the retailers in China in the US are cutting off supply relationships with China.
those people who already place an order, but they can't actually sell in US anymore. I mean, it doesn't make sense for them to sell in US. And there's a few channels I saw where a business owner was talking about he has to turn his goods away.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I heard something about that. That kind of rings a bit of a bell. Well, it's bad for the US economy, especially in the shorter run, for
Mm.
sure. Yeah, because less goods. Yep, as everyone indicated, higher inflation. Uh, Counter argument is inflation will only be one time because of this. It's not going to be an ongoing inflation as opposed as opposed to printing money where the inflation is ongoing. It's just how much people can sustain. I think a lot of US will have to contend with not buying anything new for a little while,
Mm.
which I'm sure it will not be as bad as some people would you know deem it to be law, especially if you're already poor, right? Like in those, like, I guess, um what do you call that, the Midwestern and mid-southern states, right? Midwestern southern states, or like Louisiana, Arkansas, like, Kansas, all these places, Detroit, where manufacturing factories has already,
Mm.
sort of have not been there anymore, right? They call it Rust Belt or something like this.
Yep.
Yeah, the Rust Belt, right? So, since they're already poor, it's not like they're gonna be able to afford anything anyway. So they just have to kind of wait it out. But I think the immediate impact would definitely be China in the beginning. So, uh, yeah, what are your thoughts on, like, how do you think, like, what do you think China is gonna do? Like, what are the what have you read or heard of China, taking the next steps at this point?
So I think before all the tariff actually went on, just around the tariff actually went on, I think I saw a major news on Binance, where they announced the digital renminbi was being is live and being used by a few countries in ASEAN and also in the Middle East. That alone, I think, will put a lot of pressure on US by itself, simply because they do not need the US dollar to move around. Right now, what I see one of the things that US can do after this would be to restrict SWIFT, and also the listing of the stocks from US exchanges may happen, but I doubt it will happen in this way, simply because a lot of people are invested in China through US exchanges. So I don't think that is going away that fast. So the other thing will be the SWIFT payment system.
Well, the Swift payment system is also quite outdated lah.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
that's why the whole crypto thing is,
mm,
David Sachs being a crypto czar, I think they will eventually want to do away with the Swift payment anyways, because it's too slow and it,
mm.
it takes too much time.
However, it is the way that USD is able to maintain its hegemony after all.
What about USDT and USDC? Since they're gonna be, pegged to the US dollar.
So that's interesting because it is back to USD. So if US dollar actually takes a nosedive, then USDC and USDT is like nothing. It's still back to US dollar after all.
Do you think US can continue to maintain global reserve currency?
Wow, that's an interesting question to ask. So I do think that the world will probably be split in two. So those who use US dollars and those that don't use USD the US dollars.
Yeah.
So it depends actually quite a bit how many countries and the BRICS can convince the rest of the country to actually move out from the US dollar.
Speaking of BRICS, like, what do you think BRICS will be based on? Would it be based on gold? What would it be based on? Because they can't be based on renminbi, for example,
Mm.
because China is constantly suppressing the currency, so you can't really trust that as as sort of a backed currency in that sense, because it's always going to be fluctuating. You can't trust that lah. So what do you think is, because I heard that they said that they were probably going to be pegged to gold, but then again, if you're going to be pegged to gold, it'll be also slower. It will be slower growth because you can't just print gold. We can't just inflate. Like, the reason why we were able to grow very fast after 1971 was because the US can continue to print money, essentially. Yeah.
So I actually don't think this growth factor may be as important simply because we have a decline in our population as well.
Uh,
So yeah,
elab-
it's basically it's kind of counterbalance with the drop in population overall. So your growth per growth of capital, sorry, your GDP can still be can have a 0% growth and still increase overall in per capita simply because of the amount of people that is reducing. Overall, I would think that most people would want to have around 2 to 3% in growth, but that's also in a backdrop of 2 to 3% in inflation. If inflation actually lowers, which could be the case because of China is trying to sell their stuff to the rest of the world, which would be a deflationary effect, then to maintain a nominal growth, you don't even need to maintain a the zero don't even need to maintain a GDP growth in order to maintain a certain sector.
in order to maintain a certain standard, you said?
Yeah, a certain standard of living. I mean, basically, why a lot of people is fixated on the GDP growth is because they also want to see their paycheck growth. But in a deflationary world, your paycheck doesn't need to grow in order for you to be actually be able to perform more things.
Right. Although there's always that,
I mean, it's nice to see, but yeah,
well, subconsciously, most people don't understand this part of economics, right? That means if my paycheck doesn't grow, that means we're not making enough money. But other people have to lower their prices first, and no one will really. I don't think there will very few businesses or people or entities who will, you take the first step to lower their prices, because everybody usually wants to increase prices. So in terms of deflationary prices, I don't see it happening. And so in terms of slower paycheck growth, deflationary paycheck even, definitely don't see it happening. I think governments will crumble. Like, as in, people will probably vote the governments out if they ever see that. Um, and then which brings us back to the BRICS argument, as in, like, do you think that it would still be a stable phenomenon against the USD? I know Trump says he still wants to keep the global reserve currency. So I was wrong. I was thinking that he doesn't really care about the global reserve currency because it's a very big responsibility to have. Especially how he's tariffing, especially how he was tariffing doing this tariff showdown for, like, like this, right? Yeah, because for me, is if you continue to do tariffs, then it's just going to split the world into pretty much two different parts lah. Because before this, it was a very seamless, it's a very seamless circular economy where China is the biggest manufacturer, from Japan down to China, and then US is the biggest consumer, and then everybody else is kind of in between, in terms of trade and all that. But now US wants to be the manufacturer. And at this point, they're at the brink of being able to kind of leverage, and they're, using that advantage to try to show their leverage. Now, if they succeed, then, like you said, the world is going to be split into two. So some people will have to go for Chinese manufacturing, and some people will choose to go for American manufacturing. And in which case, whether Singapore, we don't know where we're going to be.
yeah,
Will we be able to not take sides, as many of the MPs are hoping to not, or how is it going to be? I'm not very sure. So yeah, anything to add?
yeah. I can't see a way that Singapore can avoid taking sides,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, if America doesn't, like, it doesn't care, right? I mean, maybe what if there was, like, let's what do you call that? Let's do a what is the word when you want to make an example, like starts with an H. I don't recall.
Hypothesis.
Thank you. My freaking brain is there right now. Hey, hypothesis. Let's say because since Singapore is a capitalist country, right, for the most part, maybe some businesses decide that they want to do business to get manufacturing from China, and then maybe some businesses decide that they want to get manufacturing get goods from the US. Can that happen? Then that's not taking sides really.
So that depends on whether US actually would allow Singapore to function as that kind of exchange. Simply because if US doesn't want Singapore to be able to do that, then basically US can put like 100% tariff on Singapore as well.
What benefit what benefit will the US come out of this?
They are basically trying to shut down China being able to interact with the rest of the world.
Do you think Trump is really on that route, or do they just want to make deals and mind their own business? I'm not sure if actually Trump will, be so controlling like this lah. That's my
I actually don't think so as well. It is the people that come after Trump.
yeah, but Trump is also actually, I mean, he is a man of his own now. I don't think he will impose this kind of control. I think he'll probably just slap tariffs on Singapore. I mean, Singapore is a small market lah. So even though there's no Singapore doesn't tariff 95% of the goods from US. US still slaps 10% on like all goods for Singapore. That's a very unfair, unfair thing, which I also agree. But I mean, to the US, it's like Singapore's just a small market. Like, who cares? You're just kowtow to the big brother, lor. But yeah, but I guess I feel like that's as far as they'll go lah, unless Singapore retaliates lah, which I know which under PAP I don't think they will. I don't think we will lah. But
Something else that I can think of if US want to retaliate would be to on-hold all the F-35 to come to Singapore.
F-35 sucks lah.
Well, I do hope that to see maybe China actually let Singapore buy some of the J20s.
Will China buy some of the G20s?
Singapore buy some of the China's J20s, or maybe the J35s.
Well, on the flip side, I think that China will try to force Singapore's hand to not do business with the US, if it comes down to it, because they could potentially be a bit more forceful, in my opinion. Yeah, I can see that happening more. So China may try to kind of push Singapore's hand to be like, if you support the US, then we're done, kind of that kind of thing. And if that's the case, I don't know, will Singapore fare well with Chinese drones? Like the Chinese, I mean, Chinese also has a lot of data with Singapore, so we are using a lot of Chinese stuff. What's that? The DJI, right? The DJI is like so popular. A lot of people are using Luck as well, which is a Chinese company. We're all using TikTok, like da 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 da. It's endless lah. So I don't know how much difference it's gonna make. Vidona says it wouldn't make sense. Asia would go with China, probably cheaper off the bat, and then just logistics of bringing the goods through the country to the country. Cheaper from China, US will lose big time.
So something that may not be as most people realize is a lot of the countries, even if they want to, is going to have a hard time trying to buy US goods simply because they can't afford it.
Yes.
So there's a argument where people say US would like to sell more to other countries, but basically you just go to the supermarket for a lot of these countries, you can't see any US products. Simply because even though US is a very major export in food items, most countries can't really put the US stuff on their supermarket because it costs too much.
The only roundabout way we can go about this is if they sell luxury products lah, made from the US. I think that'll be the only way around it. Because back in the day, right, when you see I know the baby boomers, like my mom's generation, my auntie's generation, when they would see, oh, things are made in USA, wow, good quality. And nowadays made in China is like, how long is this gonna last, kind of thing. Oh, if US continues to keep up their SOPs and make good quality products, even if they charge a little higher, there and Singapore also has higher purchasing power. And it's just Singapore alone anyways. We could go for more we could go for US products. Maybe in the next like a few years or so, Singapore may be able to kind of leverage a little bit on that because we have bigger purchasing power. US may lose a lot of customers from Asia, right? Just simply because of the logistical issue. But Singaporeans have high purchasing power. So I won't be surprised. I mean now I'm talking about it. Probably, Trump administration, if let's say this thing is still going on for another 4 years, they may just be like, oh, okay, Singapore, you guys have higher purchasing power. Okay, we will, make zero tariffs for you guys so that you can buy more stuff from us. I guess that's one way that could go also lah. And then in that regard, hopefully, if some of the MPs think about this, they can try to use this as leverage. Logistical issues with other Asian countries, not so much, but hey, if you do business with Singapore, please bring our tariffs down to 0%. It'll be good trade for both. The only thing is China may not be happy, but I think they have a bigger fish to fry lah. Singapore is at the end of the day still a small market. Yeah.
So actually, I'm not too worried about China forcing Singapore's hand. I don't think China will actually force Singapore's hand. If they wanted to, they could have done it long time ago. Like during the time when during the time where Singapore military vehicles was caught in one of Hong Kong's port. So I think that was maybe about 10 years at this point, where Singapore actually shipped some military vehicles over to Taiwan for military exercise. And then on the way back, it was stopped at the Hong Kong customs. Even though the overall situation actually flared out a bit, but it didn't last more than a couple of months. So overall, I don't think China will make things too difficult for Singapore. And also simply because Singapore is a very good backdoor for China in order to get access to the rest of the countries.
I second your second part, as in I agree with the second part. First part, I was gonna say, times have changed because before Trump, Singapore had the full military backing of the US, of the US military. Prior to Trump, even during Trump 1.0, because Trump 1.0 was filled with a lot of the old dogs. Biden, Trump 1.0, Obama, all these they were very protective for Singapore lah, I would say. Trump now doesn't give it. He DGAF at this point. So I don't think that Singapore now has the protection of US like before, because US just.
So I mean, as in the backdoor, China using Singapore as the backdoor to trade with countries that are pro-US.
Yeah, so that part, yes. But I mean for the first part lah. So for the first part, I was gonna be like, oh, times have changed. But I think on your second point, I do agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a good leverage point for Singapore to not be controlled by China, if China wanted to do so. So so for example, so we say pro-US countries to Singapore, like which countries do you have in mind?
So currently there's UK, there's Australia.
Okay.
The rest at this point, Euro is probably 50-50 at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically we have Australia and New Zealand at this point, and UK.
Australia is more towards China, right?
No.
Oh, they're not?
At least I don't think so. I mean, as in their government is not really. It's slightly moving towards China, but it's still quite pro US.
Oh, okay.
So there's the major nuclear submarines that Australia is trying to buy. Initially, they were trying to buy from France, And
Mm-hmm.
then about 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, actually they broke France contract, and then they went with US UK alliance for the
Oh,
nuclear subs.
and when was this?
I think it was about 2 years ago. And everybody, actually, a lot of people were commenting how come they spend so much on the nuclear submarines. It actually costs more than aircraft carriers for them.
2 years or 3 years?
2 years, maybe that, maybe about 2 years, maybe less than that.
Oh, okay.
That's why, because soon after it, that's why it came out with the AUKUS thing,
With the
AUKUS
what?
alliance, the AUKUS alliance, US, UK, and Australia alliance.
Oh, no, I didn't hear about that. US, UK, Australia alliance.
It came soon after where Australia abandoned France nuclear subs and then went for US.
Okay. So UK is still more pro-US lah at this point,
Mm.
or for now. Yeah, Europe, like you said, I think Europe is split 50-50 because I know Spain wants to partner with China a bit more. Italy has already pronounced their support for US. That'll be very interesting. Phenomenon. What do you think about the European Union? How do you think it will hold together during this next 4 years, or do you think it's going to split apart?
So I guess it depends on how much pressure Russia wants to put on them.
Uh,
So without external enemy, European Union will probably fall apart.
yeah, that's true. I think Europe needs to try to make friends with Russia for their own good, for their own sake lah. Not for the world's sake, but for their own sake, right? They should try to make friends with Russia, be friends with, at least be cordial with Russia, and not try to antagonize them. Because at the end of the day, Russia is still their neighbor. It's their biggest neighbor. Even if you are in Portugal, Russia is literally only several countries away. So I think that they should try to make good with Russia, at least just be cordial with them and not not in like to not alienate them lor, and try to see them as an enemy, because I think it's kind of not smart lah for them to do that. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Europe, we'll have to see how it plays out lor. It's too many conjectures at this point to kind of run through. Right now we're just I'm really more interested as to whether China is a bit scared or not at this point in time. And if US does for whatever reason listen to Kevin O'Leary and jacks their tariffs up to 400%, will Xi Jinping really get the first flight into Washington and to try to discuss a negotiation?
I don't think so.
We don't think so.
So if there was any movement, I think yesterday, sorry, 3 days ago, when Trump announced the pullback of some of the electronic items from China to be exempted, exempted from tariff, that would have been a bit of a signal that US wants to negotiate, but China so far has no news yet, which I thought it was smart on their part, because Trump did mention about trying to have some tariff put up by this week.
Sorry,
So
my brain blanked out for a second. Can you repeat the whatever you said?
So
Someone being smart.
I think at the end of Friday, China, when US announced the pause in tariffs for some of the items that's coming from China,
Okay.
I believe that is a bit of what can be interpreted as US wants China to negotiate by softening their stance. But so far, China has not attempted to say anything as yet, has not reacted as yet.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing too. US actually is a bit in a precarious position with this tariff showdown, because I think China also knows that US is vulnerable in terms of semiconductors.
Mm.
TSMC they just announced, but they haven't started building. I mean, they may have started building, but how long is it gonna take, right? But not only that, minerals, all the important minerals, China has done the smart thing. They have done deals with Indonesia. I think Indonesia is exporting a lot of minerals to China. They have, I think, deals with different countries in Africa. I'm sure different countries in Africa is also exporting minerals to them. They've been smart lah. Captured a lot of the market already around the world for semiconductors. So yeah, then on that note, China does have quite a bit of leverage here. I think Trump administration has a lot to contend with. So now we're just waiting for Beijing to respond, right? At this point.
They might not respond at all, which I suspect that might be the case.
Yeah.
So I would think that China has planned this quite well. Any sort of announcement they would have probably have taken note. It is a bit strange they have not announced anything. So if they have not announced, that would mean that they are not planning to announce. So far, the reaction from China has been rather quick last week. So yeah, I do think it's a bit strange to see them not announcing anything and kind of support that they're probably just waiting. Anyone else?
Well, we shall see how this week plays out. I'm not sure. I wonder if Trump administration is getting a bit worried on that note. In terms of they may not have the leverage on like semiconductors and stuff. Because everything else they probably have leverage on, but I think semiconductors are the one thing and the most important thing as well. Not just semiconductors, the minerals that that are needed to make semiconductors. They may have to strike deals with Indonesia. They may have to look into different parts of Africa. Drew did say that in Ukraine there is I guess he said there's no minerals. I mean, I don't think he literally means that, but I think what he meant was not the important minerals that are needed in terms of making like defense weaponry, military weapons lah. Yeah, because those need a very, very special kind of minerals that Ukraine probably doesn't have. Yeah. So I guess China kind of still has the upper hand for now.
Well, yeah, I do think that those minerals, US themselves have quite a bit. It's just that their minds are right.
You think so?
Mm.
That's a
It's
lot
going
of
to take a while for them to reopen now.
Yeah, especially because half the country is very against digging.
Mm.
But China isn't really digging much of their land also. I think that they are digging some, but they are also leveraging on other countries to dig the minerals for them so that they don't use too much of their natural resources and destroy the beautiful landscape.
So one of the things that rare earth are able to be refined is because basically I think you probably have heard of this argument where rare earth are not that rare, but simply because it is harder to refine. You need tons of other things that to be refined from in order to get that. It's just that China has a lot of this kind of refining going on. That's why they are able to get all those out.
Do you know how many years does it takes to build factories like this, refineries? How long does it take?
Yeah. So I recall even power plants themselves would those normal power plants in US would take like what 6-7 years just to build. So for the refineries, I guess 10 maybe, because I recall there's no like oil refinery being built for like what 30 years because everything has been stopped by EPA.
Okay.
And that's why you see the refinement, their pipelines has to go over a place to just get it refined.
Ooh, apparently. Okay. So according to Brave browser, Canada opens its first the Institute of Energy Research. According to the Institute of Energy Research, Canada opens its first earth elements refinery. October
Let's see how long it takes to build.
2024. Sorry?
Let's see how long they actually get it running.
What opens already? So as in they probably already built. Uh, but the problem is Canada and US are not exactly friends right now.
And whether is it enough to supply what US needs, that's another issue.
Yeah,
The,
I'll share the screen with you right now.
mm,
This summer, a Canadian rare earth minerals processing plant became the first to operate at a commercial scale in North America. The project received the government funding, including from the US Department of Defense, as part of an effort to shift rare earth supply chains away from China. Okay. Low prices and advanced Chinese production capabilities have made the commercial development of rare earth facilities outside of China uneconomic, and poorly developed US regulatory policy allowed China to take over the industry, and those policies continue to increase costs for developing new mines in the US. Right, because Biden admin was still there, and there's a
mm.
lot of Congress people who were against it. And so this was in Saskatchewan. Well, I don't know how long that took to build.
So it's on track to increase output to 40 tons by December 2024. So, but they're going to need like what, 10 times more?
Well, that's last year already lah.
Mm.
Once fully
Yeah.
operational, its production of 400 tons of NdPr metals per year will be enough for 500,000 electric vehicles per year. And this is only for electric vehicles at this point.
Mm.
Mm, China controls 85% of rare earth processing capacity and placed export controls on technologies for rare earth mining and refining in 2023. So it seems like they actually built this thing quite fast. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they did it in 2023 and in 2024 they already opened. Okay, but US has made an enemy of China. Sorry, of Canada now. So that's not very uh what do you call that? S- uh what do you call it? That's not very soothing for the States.
However, I think remember what we have talked a while back about how Trump negotiates. So basically, it's to make everybody angry before going back to the table.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a strategy. Just to take a little bit of a back road. Apparently, Bill Maher recently tweeted, right, saying that he met with President Trump, and he's like, actually, Trump is not as bad as what he portrays it to be. He's like, where is that Trump, on TV? No, sorry, where is that Trump that I'm meeting? That's supposed to be on TV because apparently Trump is like he's very attentive. He actually listens. And apparently a lot of people who've like met him in person actually says that he's actually a very sane person. He
Mhm.
actually listens to reason and he's actually like a normal human being, so to speak. I mean, whatever you deem normal is, but somebody who actually like, talks to you like yeah, lah, not like, talk down to you or talk
Mhm.
down at you or whatever lah. I think that's what they meant lah. So, Shamath, there was have you seen the latest All In
Yeah. Mhm.
debate? Oh gosh, new rabbit hole, quick rabbit hole. What did you think of that debate?
Uh, well, I thought it was quite fiery because of Larry Summers was there lah. So I pretty much only was listening to the thing with Larry Summers lah.
With Larry Summers?
So so basically from what I hear is Larry Summers is basically trying to say everything that Trump does is bad lah. So and then the rest of the pod are trying to make an argument against it.
I never,
Especially
I never,
especially strikes.
I never knew him to be anti-Trump though. I thought he was quite like neutral across the board one. I just thought he was just very pissed off at the terrorists. I mean, I don't know him very well. I've heard of him a lot, in terms of being an economist or whatever, but like I never realized he was like this much against Trump. I just thought he was just against Trump and his terror. I just thought he was very pissed off at Trump's tariffs. So he has always been against Trump? Like that's from
I actually don't think so as well. I thought he was more neutral. But I was surprised to see when during the pod itself was quite fiery. Him
yeah,
and Sex was exchanging.
that was very, very entertaining for me. because I think this is the first time I ever saw Sex lose his cool this
Mm.
much. I mean, I've seen Sex lose his cool before, but this was the first time he actually like lost his cool. And if I was the opposition, like if I didn't like him, I would have been like, yeah, this guy is just, this doesn't make sense, that kind of thing. Because he usually has a cool head and he's reasonable.
I'm
Uh,
actually a bit surprised to see Jason actually kind of lost control of the
he's- I,
of the podcast and day.
uh, Jason has never been in good control, lah. I don't think. I've never seen him as a good host, but to his credit, of course, to know the chastisement of Ezra Klein, after Larry Summers left, Jason did kind of buddy gang up with his buddies, to go against Ezra Klein, and and Ezra was like, "You guys invited me here," but I mean, also, but to the credit of Jason, at least he stood up for what he believed was right.
Mm.
So yeah, and I do believe that the I mean, after listening to the debate, no, Shama so was surprisingly the most cool-headed one. Usually, Sex is. I think Chamath has sort of he's grown a lot since I first heard him, uh, during COVID, during the COVID period.
So
Uh,
usually a voice of reason at this point of time will be more Freeman rather than anybody else.
I'm not always into Friedberg's takes. Because I think
Okay.
Friedberg has a little less. I think he has a little less experience. Or he sounds a little less experienced than Chamath and Sex. I
Mm,
don't know
that's
if
true.
it's of
That's
his age or if it's because of certain things that he kind of he's more into. He's definitely into the science. So when you spend more time on certain things, you have a little less experience
true.
on other things. But Sex is like very into geopolitics, and he's in the business realm. So like he seems to be like on top of a lot of this type of thing. And Chamath is very much like Sex, except that he does have a little finger on the pulse of scientific new scientific things lah. So he and Friedberg can sort of gel. They kind of feed off each other from on that. But Friedberg is like a total nerd lah. So I think in terms of some geopolitical stuff, it's hard to listen to Friedberg sometimes because
Mm, that's true. Like,
yeah, at least that's my opinion. In terms of geopolitics, I love listening to Sex and even Shamath these days because I think they really have the finger on the pulse.
so in the past, I like the exchanges between Shamath and Sex because they kind of do counter with each other. Right now, Shamath and Sex are more or less aligned with each other. So I miss the time where they were like opposite ends. Okay, about opposite ends. So there
Right.
is some counter development to compare against.
Right. It doesn't irk me as much because all I want to know is the truth. I just want to know the truth. It is good to have a counter, but Jason has always been the counter lah. So, he's not always the best counter because he doesn't, sometimes his facts are just like all over the place.
So ultimately, truth it is very hard to distinguish between what is actually truth, and truth can take place in many forms after all. There can be more than one truth.
That is true. Which is why I really enjoyed Ezra Klein on there because he is the epitome of direct disagreement with Sex and Shamath. And the and that's where like
Mm.
I mean I'm on definitely on the side on Sex and Shamath more than most opinions, but you're right, like every now and then I would there will always be like a small question in mind to be like, am I a little bit being a bit too biased? I want to hear the other side. I want to hear the other side. I've heard of Ezra Klein before. He rang to you. His name rang a bell, but I didn't. I had to Google him out to realize. Oh, he's actually on the Democratic, like very pro, and to the point where he's like, I feel like Kamala administration would be much better. Then I was like, oh, okay, you're definitely on the other side. Uh, and that's even better than Jason because he actually presents his arguments much better than Jason. And there were a couple of points where I did agree with him, and obviously, Sex and Shamath will also agree with him. Um, you know that, at least for me lah, I know that okay, what I'm listening is truth when when Sex says this to Ezra Klein, where he said, oh yeah, he said, there's a lot of people who agree with you, on your opinions. These people are called Republicans, and then Ezra Klein said nothing. So I'm like, okay, debate over. Yeah, truth is, yeah, it's yeah, I mean it's pretty cool lah, like how he tried to call out Shamath as part of the corruption thing. And I mean when I first listened to Shamath say that, oh, when I call Trump, they actually pick up my call, and they actually listen to me. I never thought of that as corruption, because it's like, I mean you're a donor, obviously, they'll pick your call up lah. But no, because he did try to say Obama doesn't do that, but Trump does that. So then when Ezra Klein tried to point it out as corruption, it's like, okay, well, that's a very interesting take. Let's see where this goes. So I guess I'll see you next week then. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
See you. Good night.